Morning, good day, good evening. My name is Jonathan Regan, also known as New Questions. Welcome to another blockchaineducation.com.au market recap. Been a while, been about 5-6 days since I did the last recap. Been a little bit busy with work, played a bit of cricket on the weekend. Another fantastic day here on the Gold Coast, headquarters of blockchain finance. Speaking of blockchain finance and blockchain education, ooh, this is exciting, this blockchain stuff. Bittrex, Poloniex, all sorts of interesting news. We might talk about those later. I want to talk about Bitcoin. Unfortunately, we're still ranging sideways. We're going to go and have a look at that in a second. I've been saying for a few weeks now that as long as we stay under this 25 threshold on the ADX, Wells Wilder's ADX, the average directional index, we're essentially ranging sideways, which if you're a primary Bitcoin maximalist and you're trading Bitcoin against US dollars or US dollar tether, that's not much fun for you because you're not making all that much money because we're essentially in a narrow range, about $500 either side of $8,000. Been talking about that for a few weeks. What I have been saying is it's great for altcoin trading. We're going to go and have a look at some of the calls in the system. We're going to have a look at some of the algorithm-driven signals that we've been passing through 3 commas and Signally of late, and also talking about some of the amazing wins that the members of Blockchain Education consistently having in this wonderful sideways period. Fantastic if you're into altcoin trading, not so much if you're just interested in the price of Bitcoin and just trying to push it up or push it down. Right. Let's go into the charts. I think if I do, let me do this. This is probably the easiest thing to do. Right. Bitcoin, like I said, we're kind of ranging, although you wouldn't really know. You'd kind of, it's easy to kind of fixate on this kind of area here. Rapid movement across the 200 moving average. This blue one here is the 200 moving average on all my charts. Nice looking move there. You can see that on the average directional index, we went above the threshold here. We went nice and DI positive, nice explosive move. Breaking this pattern, we see recently we had a pattern of a, let me just minimize that. We had a high here, but we had a lower high, another lower high, a set of lower highs, another lower high. So we're expecting another lower high down here, but what we actually found was we break above this area and we make a new higher high. So in this area here, as we broke through that 200, you knew that this was the entry pretty much here. I'm going to point in a candle. This was a really nice little place to get into the trade. And even if you were pretty conservative and you waited for the 200 moving average to break and for the ADX to sort of come up, you're still looking at the better part of 2 to 4% here. Using leverage, that would have been really, really nice. Is Bitcoin going to continue higher, 8,200? I don't think so. I think we're just going to continue going sideways. I can say that with a little bit of authority because on the 4 hour, we're still sitting in this tight range. Now, what do I mean by range? Well, like I said, $500 either side of $8,000, and this is the sort of zone that we're sitting in. We also know that this area here, particularly under the 25 threshold on the ADX, basically means we're not trending. We were downtrending here, but now we're not trending. So we're still doing this cyclic motion, as I mentioned before. I suggested very much that we were going to do this. We've come down here, and I wouldn't be surprised if we come up here to meet this 200 moving average once again. Ultimately, we're looking at that sort of cyclic nature of our methodology, a bit more sideways action. Doesn't bother me. Great for altcoin trading, like I suggested. Not so much if you want to just trade Bitcoin. Although having said that, I think there's about 5 to 6% either side. Let's actually see what this is. So coming up here, yeah, about a 10% range by the looks of things. So if you were lucky enough to buy right in at the bottom, sell right up the top here, you're literally looking at 10%. This sort of 10% down and then up and then down and then up and then down and then probably up. Let's just talk about that real briefly. I'll just jump back here. So this 10% stuff is great for 10 times leverage. If it's swinging 5% either side, that means that if you're at 20 times leverage on Binance or Deribit or Bitfinex or a whole bunch of other places, this is going to knock you out and liquidate you completely. So when they pump at 5%, if they pump the price up 5%, that's going to knock out all the 20 times shorts. And when they dump at 5%, that's going to knock out the 20 times long. So it's not surprising at all that we're swinging 5% either side of 8,000. And that's basically designed to liquidate a lot of margin traders who just don't know what they're doing. like I said, it's a dangerous game to be playing when Bitcoin's running sideways, because you never really know, are we going down to 6,000 or are we going up to 12,000? Who really knows? Right now, the average directional index is saying we're going sideways, and the so-called manipulators are out there pumping and dumping at 5% either side, liquidating positions left, right, and center. So be very, very careful if you're trying to make money by simply trading Bitcoin versus US dollar. Much better to be trading other altcoins against Bitcoin and kind of feel confident right now that we're sort of going sideways. Bitcoin's fairly stable, would I say. $500 either side of $8,000, that's pretty stable. So while it's acting stable and running sideways and it's sitting below the threshold on the ADX, now's a great time to be trading altcoins. Let me show you some altcoins that are doing way more than just 5%. Considerably more. Okay, so as you know, blockchaineducation.com.au provides analyst signal. That's professional analysts, people like me, people we've worked with for years who are 24/7 in the system, and they are applying our methodology into incredibly complex financial markets. And our methodology works, plain and simple. Those calls are human-driven calls. That means a human analyst is watching the market, a human analyst is applying the methodology, making decisions on the fly, putting up a chart, adding some commentary, putting the call into the system, and our members are then automatically, if they choose so, automatically entered into those calls using our hybrid auto trading system. Now we call it a hybrid because the analysts are essentially making the decision for them, and they've kind of nominated a certain amount and a certain take profit level. Our system automatically enters them and they make money. So great job by the analysts of late. I'm just going to go and have a look here. I'm just going to scroll up here and refresh. This is my summary page. You can have a look at some of these calls that have come in from the human analysts. 48% in the last 3 days on CHZ. We're going to look at that. The Chili's coin, the stock standard 11% there on XEM, 23 on gas, 32 on TNT. We've got MDA still stringing along. DOC, I remember we did a 4-hour candle, 200 moving average bounce. We're going to talk about that. Lend done exceptionally well. We'll talk about Lend. One nice little 10% there. Ren, Matic, Link, PivX, and FET. So over the last couple of weeks, some fantastically solid calls by the human analyst. Nothing like the volume of the algorithm-driven calls, and I'm just going to do the usual scroll down thing here. You can press pause and slow it down, but keep in mind that there's just so many of these like double-digit calls now. The further back we go in time, the better the results are. It's been fairly challenging. Gas there going 32%. Pretty challenging over the last week and a half, I've got to say, because Bitcoin has been swinging around and it's been affecting some of the altcoin trends. A lot of panic selling in the market. The guys who are sticking with us over these longer term trends, you'll see what I mean in a second, really starting to make some serious money by just having a bit of patience over the last week and a half, 2 weeks. I've been talking about it in the YouTube videos over and over again. When a coin is trending above the 200 moving average and it's just sitting there going and making a series of higher lows and higher highs, you just don't want to be going out. So shout out to all the Zignally and 3 Commas members who've been coming on board recently. I'm still dismayed and a little concerned that the average time to sell for you guys outside of our community is 1 to 2 days. This is not really what our methodology suggests, and I'll show you why you really need to start thinking about a 5 to 14 day trading window for these calls and these algorithm signals, because there is a lot more money to be made and you're leaving money on the table. To kind of drive that point home, let's have a look at that Chili's call from the other day. CHZ BTC, Chili's, pretty unusual name. Let's set this up, turn this one off, and you can see just a nice little move here. The 200 moving average coming through this area here explodes above the 200. Now this is the 4 hour. So the 4 hour, it looks just so obvious, doesn't it? Like we have a bit of a ranging section here, this section here under the threshold, not really doing very much. As soon as we go DI positive and we get above the threshold, this is a beautiful entry, and we've had an explosive move up. We're looking at the better part of 100% in 5 days. Now, if you're selling at a couple of percent after a few hours, you're missing out. I mean, 100% in 5 days really doesn't look like it's about to slow down either. Just recently, literally like a couple of seconds ago, hitting a new higher high. Now, on the 4 hour, obviously it looks a lot simpler. 45 minutes, and the hourly was when we called it. Analysts calling it just in this area here. String of pink bubbies showing bullish intent. Our algorithms and our analysts working in tandem. Here's the entry, and from here we've gone a clean, where are we now? 124% in 9 days. So staggering move, 124% in 9 days. Lots of opportunities to knock yourself out of this trade, I've got to say. Getting in here, you kind of, this entire section here really didn't do much. You get as high as here and you come back deep, back into this 50 moving average. Let's just have a look. This blue one is the 200 moving average. This orange one is the 50 moving average. We often see these kind of retraces back towards the 50. You'll see that over and over again here and here and here and here and here. So what you want to do in a situation like this, where you just have this beautiful looking uptrend, you want to cross-reference the 4-hour candle just to make sure that it's still doing really well. When we call these, basically say to our traders, look, if it's sitting above the 200 moving average and it's sitting above the 50 moving average, there's really nothing to suggest that you need to exit. And so the entry was sort of down in this area here, and we might suggest that as it broke below the 50 moving average, as the ADX went negative, as it fell below 25, this might have been your eventual exit point. At the end of the day, it did roll over, and from here to here, you're looking at a clean 77% in just over a week. Now, for those people who are kind of even more patient, they might just think, look, we're doing this pullback from the very top. Look, this is the top of the RSI cave. This is the bottom. So this is the sort of pullback that we expect. The 50 moving average being something of a sort of a median point. So very, very high off the 50, coming down into this area here, the bottom of the moving average. As soon as it turned back up, you want to think about getting back in, breaks straight above immediately. So, I mean, for a lot of people, this period of time here, we're looking at around about 7 or 8 hours. They either exited and took their profits. Some people just kind of hung in there. And for those, we ended up making a new higher high. Chili's continuing to go higher. Really, really great call by the analysts. Also really well picked up by the algorithms early. Lots and lots of good DI positive action. Some pretty solid drawbacks. I've got to say, some of these are as much as 16%. So if you've got a stop loss and it's triggering at, say, 10%, you're going to be out of the trade, lots and lots, out of the trade, out of the trade, out of the trade, here, here, here. I mean, you're essentially finding great ways to kick yourself out of the trade. Looks a lot better on the 4-hour, doesn't it? I mean, look, starts over here, dumps pretty hard, finds a level of support, runs ADX positive, eventually breaks the threshold, and now off we go. Now, very, very high here against the moving averages. Probably want to start thinking about taking profits. Can it go to 200? Well, that remains to be seen, but I got to say that the 50 moving average is looking quite positive. We'll just change that to orange. You can see this 50 moving average kind of coming up through here. The 200 moving average is starting to sort of pick up a little bit of speed as well. Change that to blue. You can see it's kind of going to be going up in this direction. ADX extremely high, showing that it's a really good trend, and DI positive. So Chili's very interesting. On the 4-hour looks great. On the 45-minute, just setting new higher highs. For those of us who understand the methodology, buying into the bottom of the band, beautiful rebuy location here, just as it goes DI negative, and then this explosive move straight out of the top. So great looking stuff there, Chili's. A little bit slow to get started. Let's say the analysts and the algos called it probably maybe 1 or 2 days earlier, and we went sideways for a couple of days, and people were probably questioning whether or not it was a decent enough signal, but sure enough, it got a bit of momentum and went higher. One which has had fairly low volume, I got to admit, pretty low volume, not that much, a couple of hundred Bitcoins over the last month or so, is a coin called BRD Bread. Now, the only reason I highlight this is because let's just scroll out and just look at this. Isn't that the most wonderful looking trend? Now, I'm not going to do such a great job doing the trend line here. I'm going to make that a blue, I'm going to clone that and sort of shove that over here. I just wanted to show you that this, in terms of a trend channel, this is a really, really nice looking trend channel. What is a trend? It's basically a series of higher highs and higher lows. We could see through this period we had a lot of higher lows, just keep getting higher and higher. And at the same time, we had a series of higher highs, just getting higher and higher. And this sort of oscillation, you can see there's a bit of an oscillation inside this channel. and then recently coming back down into the 200 moving average. Let's clean this up and look at this beautiful move here, straight into the 200 moving average. Here's the 200, a huge retrace into the bottom of the RSI cave, and another explosive move to set yet another higher high. Bread got to be worth, where do we enter? Somewhere up here, 83% in 24 days. Slow moving, low volume, beautiful trend. You don't want to be going anywhere when you have a look at something like this. 4 hour makes it even more impeccable and easier to understand. I mean, this is perhaps one of the most beautiful trends that I've seen in a long time. Explosive movement across the 50 and the 200, excellent entry here, and just a really nice steady trend. Every time it pulled back, great time to buy. So bread doing really nice. Let's look at the 45-minute for TNT. I've been talking about this coin for probably a month now, featured on several of my YouTube videos. TNT once again continuing to make a series of higher highs. I'm going to use the 45-minute candle, although it has been a long-term call. I just wanted to highlight a few ideas here. Beautiful algorithmic entries here. I know that as a company we've called this multiple times. The signals have had traders in and out of this the whole time. Beautiful 200 moving average bounce, beautiful bounce here, beautiful bounce here. Every time you see one of these pink boxes, we call them pink Barbies. That's basically bullish intent. Our algorithm picks them up and we basically tell our members to start thinking about buying more. So beautiful locations to be thinking about accumulating down in this sort of area down here, and then buying more as it dived back into the 200 and the 50. Buy more, and continuing higher and higher. Another fantastic double blitz entry here as it went across that 200. Just a huge set of moves. I think if we go out to the 45, go out to the 4 hour, I think the algorithm got it right here, and we're still going and went as high as 260%. Now, I don't know about you, but when somebody shows me a chart that looks like this and then says, oh yeah, we were doing 260%, I tend not to believe them, which is why I actually started documenting TNT on YouTube, inside and outside of our trading community. Our entries on those TNT calls are timestamped by Coinergy, they're timestamped by TradingView, they're timestamped by DigitalOcean, our server, they're timestamped inside our own systems, and now technically they're timestamped and talked about in the past on YouTube. So you can go back and have a look at some of my YouTube videos where I talked about TNT, I talked about the staggeringly beautiful uptrend, and here we are some 30 days later. I'm about 9 videos into my YouTube series now, and I've been talking about this the whole time. And here's a bit of evidence to suggest that we know what we're talking about. 260% in 30 days. If you're sitting here working out ways to knock yourself out of these trades, oh my God, my 20% stop loss kicked in. Oh no, my 17% stop loss kicked in. Oh no, my 16% stop loss kicked in. Oh no, wait, there's more. Oh no, my 16% stop loss. The truth is, when a coin pulls back 20%, but then rebounds to a new higher high while setting a new higher low, you got to realize that 20% deviation is essentially par for the course for a coin like this. If it's going to run 260% in just over a month, then you got to expect, if you're going to make those sort of numbers, that you got to have a really flexible, very loose and soft stop loss. You don't even want to think about using a stop loss unless this uptrend breaks. And the closest we ever saw was just here. We were DI negative for a little while, into the 50 moving average, and just here. But I got to say, these areas here are pretty known sort of support levels, and they really were only in peril for as little as 12 hours. I mean, at the end of the day, this has just been a beautiful looking thing. And if you need any more confirmation, you go out to the 1 day chart and look. I mean, why would you ever bother leaving a coin that looks like this? This is a daily chart. That means that each individual candle is an entire day. And all I can see is just candles going higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. And this just, to me, this is just rock solid. This is DI positive on the average directional index. This black line here is the strength. This line across here is the threshold. From here to here is just rock solid. Nothing in this trend would suggest to me that it would be worth your time exiting. And indeed, we've been saying to our members for as long as I can remember, for about 30 days now, don't even think about getting out of this coin. Just doing really well. So TNT, kind of good evidence to suggest that we know what we're talking about. Another one that I've been highlighting for at least 2.5 weeks now, constantly in the YouTube videos, and also the algorithms, the calls, the analysts, the guys in chat. We've been constantly talking about ZRX for just as long, actually, probably about another month as well. So let's have a look at what ZRX has been doing. Now, you can see I'm going to pull out here on the 45-minute candle, which is my preferred choice. We see some absolutely great locations once again to accumulate. 200 moving average bounce, a perfect location here, another perfect location, and what we're seeing is a series of higher lows. You can see we're going up here. This is probably a new higher low. We're seeing a series of higher highs come across here, another higher high. Are we going up to 5,000? I've been talking about it for quite a while. It kind of looks to me like we're on our way. Let's have a look at the 4-hour average chart. I mean, once again, why on earth would you kick yourself out of this trend? Look at that, just absolutely staggering. Coming across on this 200 moving average, it's now gone 150% in 30 days itself. Beautiful trace backs as well. Like, you're up here, right? Let's do that again. You're up the top of this candle or the top of this candle, and it pulls back and you're terrified. Like, I'm pulling back 20% only to come back into this 50 moving average where you're thinking about rebuying. So you want to rebuy in here, rebuy, accumulate, rebuy. Every time it gets close to that 50 moving average, just think about buying more. If we come back down into this area, I want everybody to buy some more because we're most likely going higher. Why would I feel like that? Well, I've got to say, all I can see here is a pretty good rock solid trend. I mean, let's do something like that. I mean, not the best trend channel work because I'm just doing it as fast as I can. Do we have some sort of cyclic nature? Of course we do. Our methodology holds true. You can see we've got up here, come down, come down. I wouldn't be surprised if we get some sort of retrace into this sort of area down here, and then another pop back up into that 5,000 level. I essentially think we're ending up at 5,000 eventually. I got to keep an eye on the trace, got to keep an eye on the trend, looking really solid. We do reject the RSI cave a few times. It's been a long time since we've come anywhere near the floor of this RSI cave. Can you see? Let's look at the price, the candles in relation to the floor. They're miles above it. I mean, we're talking up here. This is where the candles are, and this is the floor of the RSI cave where you would traditionally be oversold. So it's been a while, so we may see some sort of move that ends up sort of coming back into this sort of area before going off to that 5,000. I wouldn't be surprised if a Fibonacci chart just sort of works out somewhere along this. Yep, look at that, bang, good area here, good area here, good area here, a bit of flat. Another one here, yeah, maybe not so deep, maybe only just coming back into this level before running higher. Really interesting. I do expect it to run to 5,000. ZRX, been talking about it for weeks, 130%, easy stuff, easy trend. DOC, Btc, we're going to have a look at DOC on the 4-hour because some of our traders in our community were quite terrified at some point because it really has been kind of challenging them. You come in here and you get a nice entry signal and it runs as high as 100% in 12 hours, only to essentially drop as much as 61% over the next 11 days. So a real challenge there. When we came back over, we strung a bunch of pink Barbies here. We got 80x positive. We get in again. And then those who are patient, you're looking at this massive move, 340% in 8 days. Are you kidding me? Our algorithms and our analysts were all over that. I know a lot of our guys made an absolute fortune. I was looking at the trend break and we were talking about it in chat. The trend break looks something like this. So if you ignore this giant candle here, this is ridiculous. But if you have a look at this sort of cyclic nature, you got this nice little pattern here. And then I expected this, but what we got was a trend break. So break the bottom of the channel. As soon as we broke the trend, that trend channel floor, guess where everybody was ready to be? And the 200 moving average, perfect place to rebuy. And what a great reward that was. Buying into this pink Barbie here, 200% moving average, like we're talking 50% in 2 days. What a fantastic win for the traders. And yet another higher high. So we have a high here, another higher high. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up going to 200. This is the 200 level, just in this zone right here. This is 200. So will we end up doing something like this and get there eventually? I'd say we probably will. Let's go and have a look at the daily. Daily is going to give us real good confirmation. It also shows why the 200 moving average, this one, is such a powerful source of resistance. When the price comes from above, comes up into it, you can see it rejected it here, rejected, rejected, rejected. We finally break above it, reject the roof, come back in, and suddenly now the 200 moving average is actually a place of support, which is the most amazing thing about the price. When it gets over the 200 moving average, suddenly the 200 is a place of support. So what I see here is potentially a sort of move into the floor of this trend channel. I'm going to make that red. I do think on this daily chart that we're going to see a little bit more of this. We're going to see a decline in the strength, and the DI candle is actually going to go a little bit lower. I wouldn't be surprised if we come back down into this 200 moving average. If you see this 200 moving average coming through here, I wouldn't be surprised if we come back in there. But I would then imagine that we might actually end up making another higher low. So here's a low, here's a low, this is a higher low, this is a higher low, this is a higher low. We might end up making a higher low by coming back in and then going and trying to make a new higher high around that 200. So higher high, higher high, higher high, higher high, higher high. The next one at 200. I don't know, kind of feels like it's going to be a struggle to get there, to be honest. This 200 moving average, the daily average, is going to be an interesting one. Doc, at least on the 45-minute candle, some of our guys did a fantastic bounce off that 200 moving average. Couldn't have asked really for a better setup. Oh, sorry, the 4-hour. Let's have a look at the 4-hour 200 moving average. Yeah, that perfect bounce there, just absolutely great. Slow moving, but as much as, I mean, at some points we had stupidness. Stupid 100% in 20 hours. And then we're shooting up here and we're doing, what is that, 200% in one day. And then from the bottom here up to the top of here, we're talking another 100% in 5 days. And then we're doing another 50% off that 200 moving average bounce in just 2 days. So massive swinging coins. If you're going to make 100, 200, 300% off a coin, you have to expect a 20 to a 30% swing back into a 200 moving average. It's just par for the course for what we're doing here. Lend, a recent one actually, we're going to look at Lend on the 45-minute. Obviously on the 4-hour looks really fantastic, still setting new higher highs even as I chat. Beautiful entry down here, pink Barbies, double blitz, great entry coming into this area here, RSI, roof of the RSI cave, diving such a long way, finding support somehow at the 75 level and then pumping even higher, as high as this. So far, Lend is up out of this 200 moving average. We went as high as 78% in 9 days. Do I think it's going to continue higher? Possibly. We do have some negative, DI negative action just about to start. The trend has actually rolled over. We're looking like we're about to go sideways for a while. So if we go and have a look at the 4-hour, are we going to go sideways? Yeah, I got to say we're pretty high. I wouldn't be surprised if we do this before heading higher. We did reach the psychological zone that I expected. I remember telling traders in on this 200 moving average bounce that we may go, if we bounce and set a higher high, which we did here at 65, we might go all the way to 100. Now at the time, 65 to 100 seemed like a bit of a a stretch of the imagination, but at the end of the day, I was correct, or the analysts were correct. 100, this is a psychological zone, 100 Satoshis coming out of this area, going as high as this. We're looking at, I think it was about 70%. Yep. Oh, well, actually 170% over the 40 days, but coming out of this 200 moving average, the better part of 130%. Coming out of the bottom of the bands here, the better part of 71%. So even if you took your profit at 100 in this kind of area here, where is it, 100? Even if you took your profit here and you didn't quite get the perfect top, because I mean, who does? You're only within 10% of the perfect top anyway. So Len doing really great things, called multiple times. I know there was entries just here, and there was another one down here. So 50 and 200 moving average breaks here, here, and here. So 3 entries. I think out of that 170, there's 3 or 4 calls that went about 30 or 40%. You can go back to the start of the video where I showed you all the algorithms and the calls, and you can work it out yourself. At the end of the day, blockchaineducation.com.au is about monitoring the markets every single minute and constantly providing new entries. And then ultimately, once you're in a call, if you're just doing a constant non-stop 4-hourly candle uptrend, then just stick with it. If you've got any concerns about a 15 or a 20 or a 30% retrace, come into the chat. Should I sell? You know, that's what our guys are there for. 24/7 professional analysts there to give you the advice on what actually to do on a 30% retrace. I mean, you might be thinking, it's come back 30%, I'm about to sell. And one of our professional analysts says, have you thought about buying more? you're buying it on the 200 moving average. The next thing, it runs another 150% and you've doubled down and made even more money. So it comes down to buyers and sellers, bulls and bears, and knowing what you're doing at the right time. Speaking about knowing what you're doing, let's look at Rlc Btc, yet another one that I've been talking about for weeks and weeks in the YouTube channel. An absolute killer trend here. Coming out of this area here, as it crossed over the 200 moving average, we're now gone as high as 125% in 30 days. Anybody who's sitting there telling you that Bitcoin having, you know, sort of come down about $1,000 in the last 30 days, it's terrible for crypto. That's rubbish. I've just shown you like 3 or 4 calls that have done 100, 200, 300%, as well as at the beginning of the video, I showed you probably about 600 calls and algorithmic signals that have actually gone 5 to 10 to 20%. So once again, thank you for sticking with me. I know I talk quickly. I know it's a little bit too much to absorb sometimes. 200 moving average bounce, perfect location there. Coming back into the 50 moving average, perfect bounce location there as well. And continuing to do really, really good things. On the 45 minute, it's even more obvious where you should be buying and selling. Now, this was a great triple cluster here. Perfect entry, perfect place to rebuy, another perfect place to rebuy, a series of higher lows matched by higher highs. The only time the whole thing fell apart was when we broke below the 50 and the 200, and finally we find ourselves in this scrambled egg sort of situation here, and we finally get a break. We don't get a higher high, we don't get a higher low. This kind of cyclic nature failed. Right here is your exit point. My gosh, there's a lot of spaghetti on the chart. Right in here is your exit point. That's where essentially everything fell apart. We'll go out to the 4 hour and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. 4 hour makes it really dead set easy to see. We go DI negative, the ADX rolls below the 25, and this area here, as we broke below the 50, this is essentially your exit. Now this, as we went over the 200, was your entry. So if you're patient enough to trade this, you're looking at a clean 90% in 36 days without very much to worry about. Couple of opportunities to buy into the 200 moving average and buy into the 50 moving average, possibly buy again, but then a quick swift exit as we go below the 25 threshold. And there it is. I mean, what are we talking about? 5, 6, 7 calls that I've been talking about non-stop on YouTube for about a month. And we see over the last 30 days, these trends are intact. Higher highs, higher lows, massive percentages, 150, 200, 300%. What I would suggest is, and I'll just change out to this one, if you're sort of struggling to make some money, and if you know that one of these giant coins would have really put you back in the game, 100, 200, 300, double, triple your money, you might want to think about joining blockchaineducation.com.au. We have a 7-day refund policy. We've got a special discount deal right now. And it only really requires 1 or 2 of these cryptocurrency coins. You get in there and do 100 or 200% for you to get back in the game. And remember, this is Bitcoin you're trading against. Bitcoin itself, I'm fairly bullish on it. I imagine we're going to go back to 10,000 and eventually conquer that all-time high. So that's kind of a double bonus. So think about that. Tell your friends, like, share, comment, subscribe to our channel if you want. I'm going to continue to add more and more information through these videos and try and give you guys some pretty decent entries. Keep an eye on some of these coins that we're talking about. By no means do these trends look like they're kind of dying or failing. You just got to have a look at the 4 hour and the 1 day. I'll talk about some of the other stuff. You can pick up a lot of information from the call system and the summaries of the calls, and you can kind of have a look at some of these and apply this methodology. Otherwise, like I said, become a member, talk to real analysts, get real analyst calls and algorithmic signals, now powered by Signally and 3Commas as well. So very exciting stuff. Don't let this sideways Bitcoin stuff let you down. Loads of opportunity in the altcoin markets, and I look forward to seeing you in chat and have a good chat. It's great, beautiful summer in Australia. Crypto seems to be heating up. I'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers.